When I died, I didn't expect to wake up standing in a place that looked neither like heaven nor hell, but something in between. A vast stage, surrounded by darkness, where countless figures dangled from invisible threads. I couldn't move at first. My hands trembled as I realized there were strings tied to me too. Thin, glowing cords that stretched upward into the blinding light. I wasn't alone. People all around me hung suspended, twitching in silence, their eyes wide open yet empty. I tried to speak, but my voice came out hollow as though echoing through eternity. Then I heard the voice. Not thunderous, not gentle, but filled with authority that pierced through every lie I had ever lived. "Every puppet," the voice said, "will face the puppet master." I fell to my knees as light rippled across the void. The strings that bound me began to tighten, pulling me upward toward the source of that voice. Panic surged through me, but deep down I knew this was no dream. This was judgment, and the master was real. As the light drew closer, I saw what those strings really were. They weren't threads of silk or light. They were choices. Every lie I'd told, every secret sin I'd hidden, every time I'd chosen pride over humility, they all had become strings tied to me, and each one was being pulled by unseen hands. Around me, I could see others struggling too. Some fought the pull, others laughed like madmen, pretending they were still in control. I recognized faces, politicians, influencers, even priests, all hanging like dolls in the air, their masks falling away one by one. No titles mattered here, no wealth, no followers. Only truth. Then the stage shifted. It wasn't empty anymore. At its center stood a massive throne carved of pure light, and upon it a figure sat, not angry, not smiling, but watching. His eyes didn't just see me, they knew me. Every secret thought, every fake prayer, every selfish deed, exposed in a single glance. I wanted to run, but my strings pulled tighter, forcing me to face him. "You let others pull your strings," the voice said, echoing through the realm. "You danced for men when I called you to walk with me." I felt the weight of those words pierce through me. For the first time in my existence, I couldn't hide behind excuses. My soul was naked before the truth. I looked up and saw the strings stretch into shapes, shadows of faces I once obeyed. My boss who taught me to lie for profit. My friends who laughed when I mocked faith. My desires that whispered I deserved more no matter who I hurt. They weren't people anymore. They were puppeteers. Dark silhouettes clutching the glowing threads that had guided my every step on earth. And I realized something horrifying. They didn't control me. I had let them. I had given them my will because it was easier than obedience to truth. The puppet master spoke again. "I gave you freedom, but you traded it for comfort. You begged for approval when I offered purpose." His words thundered, yet they carried sorrow, not rage. Around me, other souls screamed as their strings burned away, each shriek echoing a life wasted in imitation. I saw a woman who had lived for vanity watch her reflection shatter into dust. A man who had cheated thousands reached out to grasp his money as it dissolved into flame. And I saw my own ambitions crumble, the very idols I had built now standing as witnesses against me. The stage trembled. The strings began to catch fire, one by one, and the smell of burning memories filled the air. I fell forward, clutching my chest, crying out, "Who am I without them?" The light grew brighter, searing my eyes, and the voice replied, "That is what you must remember. To be mine is to be free." The strings that once held me began to burn, and with every thread that snapped, I felt both agony and release. Each break came with a memory, my pride at a promotion I didn't earn, the lies I told to appear kind, the prayers I spoke for attention rather than love. The fire didn't destroy me, it revealed me. Beneath every mask, beneath every false smile, there was a soul that had long forgotten its creator. I screamed, not because of pain, but because I finally understood how easily I had been enslaved by my own desires. The stage turned red, glowing like molten gold. From the shadows emerged angels, tall, silent beings whose faces reflected both sorrow and strength. They carried no weapons, only light. They moved through the rows of puppets, cutting strings that were ready to break, while others remained bound, still fighting to keep their illusions alive. When one angel passed me, I saw its eyes, deep, endless, and full of something I had not felt in years. Mercy. He didn't speak, but as his hand brushed my shoulder, one last thread snapped and I fell to the ground. The light dimmed for a moment and I looked at my hands. No longer bound, no longer shining with false glory. I was trembling, but free. For the first time, I could stand on my own, without the pull of the world's hands guiding me. But as I stood there, the voice of the puppet master returned, no longer distant, but near, almost inside me. Now that you are free, he said, will you walk as mine, or build new strings of your own? The question shook me to my core. Freedom, I realized, was not the end. It was the beginning of choice. The light surrounding me softened, and the stage transformed once again. Before me appeared a mirror, massive, silver, and alive. Its surface rippled like water, and when I looked into it, I didn't see my face. I saw my life. Every moment replayed in vivid, piercing truth. Not how I remembered it, but how it truly was. The laughter I thought was joy looked hollow now. The good deeds I had bragged about were laced with pride. The sins I had buried deep beneath excuses rose like smoke, forming shapes that clung to me. I fell to my knees, weeping, begging for the mirror to stop showing me who I had become. But it didn't stop, because the puppet master doesn't reveal to shame. He reveals to redeem. Then I saw something strange in the reflection. Behind me stood a man clothed in white, holding a pair of golden shears. His eyes were filled with both fire and forgiveness. "You have seen your strings," he said, stepping closer. "Now see the scars they left behind." He reached toward my wrists, and I gasped as I saw faint burns where the cords had been. Every sin had left a mark, each one a memory of surrender to the wrong master. "Can they ever heal?" I whispered. He nodded slowly. "Only when you stop reaching for the strings again." His words struck deep, slicing through every illusion I had left. For a moment, the mirror went still. My reflection smiled, not with pride, but with peace. But then, far beyond the stage, I heard the sound of new strings being woven. The puppet master turned his gaze toward the horizon. "There are others still dancing," he said, "and soon they too will face the hand that moves unseen." My heart ached as I realized judgment wasn't just for me. It was for all. The stage widened, and I was lifted higher, able to see beyond my own story. The world stretched below like a theater without end. Nations, governments, churches, corporations, all moving in rhythm, unaware of the strings above them. I saw leaders speaking words not their own, voices crafted by greed and fear. I saw crowds cheering for illusions, convinced they were free, while invisible cords shimmered above their heads, guiding every thought, every belief, every war. The puppet master's voice spoke again, filled with a sorrow that made the heavens tremble. "They believe they pull the strings," he said, "but even the puppet who commands others is still bound." I saw kings and presidents, pastors and prophets, all tangled together in the same web. Some were trapped by money, others by pride, others by their craving for control. And still below them, ordinary souls followed blindly, never once looking up to see who held their cords. I fell to my knees again, crying out, "Why did you allow this? Why let the puppets rule?" The light dimmed for a moment, and his answer came, soft but heavier than thunder. "Because love cannot exist without freedom, and freedom cannot exist without choice. Every string begins as a choice." I understood then, the world wasn't enslaved by force. It was enslaved by desire, by the silent trade between comfort and conviction. And when I looked closer, I saw that even the darkest puppeteers had their own strings, leading upward into a deeper shadow, one that no human eye could fully see. A presence watching from beyond the light, patient, cruel, waiting for his final pull. The deeper I looked, the darker it became. From the highest puppeteer's hands rose threads of black smoke that twisted into a crown of serpents. Beneath that crown, hidden in shadow, I saw eyes that glowed like coals. Eyes that had watched humanity dance for ages. The enemy was not flesh and blood, but the one who had taught us to love our chains. Every lie, every deception, every false freedom began with him. The puppet master's voice grew stern now, echoing like 1,000 trumpets. This is the one who said, "You can be like gods," and made mankind forget they were already mine. I watched in horror as the dark presence tugged at the strings of the powerful, the famous, and even the holy. Some resisted, crying out the name of Jesus, and their cords snapped instantly, light pouring through the broken ends. Others clung tighter, afraid to lose their crowns, their faces distorted as the darkness consumed them, turning their bodies into puppets of pride. And I realized something terrible. He didn't need to force anyone. He only whispered what their hearts already desired. The puppet master turned his gaze toward me once more. "Do you see now?" he said. "Every empire, every deception, every false god begins with a single thread tied by choice. And every soul that will not cut it will be pulled." I trembled as I watched entire nations sway under invisible rhythm, and I knew the world below had no idea it was dancing toward fire. Then the light intensified, so bright it swallowed the stage, the puppets, the darkness, everything. Only his voice remained, deep and final. "Every puppet will face the puppet master, and every hand that pulls will answer to mine." When the brilliance faded, I found myself kneeling at the edge of eternity, no longer on the stage, no longer among the puppets, but in the silence of his presence. There were no strings, no mirrors, no shadows, only a vast stillness that felt alive. And there, standing before me, was the one whose words had torn every illusion apart. His face was like light itself, so radiant I couldn't look long, yet so gentle it drew me closer. He spoke softly, though his voice carried across creation. "You were never meant to dance for them. I made you to walk with me." His words weren't accusation, they were restoration. Every scar where the strings had burned began to glow faintly like healed wounds turned into light. The shame that once clung to me dissolved, and for the first time, I felt what true freedom was. Not the absence of control, but the fullness of belonging. I looked back at the world below, still moving, still unaware, and I cried out, "They don't know they're puppets!" The master looked toward the earth with sorrow and love. "Then tell them," he said. "Tell them before the stage goes dark." He extended his hand, and as I took it, I felt myself falling, not into fear, but into life. My eyes opened, and I was back, on a hospital bed, gasping for air, doctors shouting my name. But I remembered. I remembered the strings, the throne, the fire, and above all, the truth. Because when Jesus said, "Every puppet will face the puppet master," he wasn't speaking of condemnation. He was warning us of awakening. For one day, every soul that danced for the world will have to answer to the one who gave them the stage. And on that day, no one will hide behind their strings.